To go in inventory, we go to the main menu again, which is always down here under the ChannergySE Explorer button, by the way, and click on inventory. Notice when I move over it, I have other options as well. But for now, we're just going to click the inventory button. That's the default function, is to open that up. So that'll take us to our first product that we have in inventory. Here, we'll discuss what these fields mean, then we'll talk about how we list them on the various channels. So you have a product number. This can be anything you like, your own product number, UPC code, doesn't matter. I think it's about 150 characters. We have a name field that's easier to read. I believe that's around 250. You can have either one or both of these show up on invoices, packing lists, emails, etc. There's another short description here, also around 250, and then an unlimited length long description that you can put whatever details you want in here. Don't recommend HTML, just plain text is best. We'll talk about listings in a bit and additional fields. The order message is useful to operators that are keying orders because it shows up when you select an individual item. If you remember on the order screen down below, we have that little tab called Item Detail. They'll see a reminder there to do upsells, cross-sells, etc. Maybe it needs batteries, that kind of thing. If you don't do telephone orders, and it's, for you it's just an extra field you can use for whatever you like. You can have a supplier set up on a product, or you can have multiple suppliers. For each supplier, you can keep track of their product number, the price you pay for it, how you buy it, case, each, etc. If there's any minimum quantities you need to meet, any discounts, notes, etc. A breakdown would be how you would break down a case, for example, maybe that's 12. You can have as many suppliers in here as you like. You can also have the same supplier in here multiple times. Maybe they have different product numbers or different units of measure or prices, etc. Jumping back here, we also have a product type. And we can assign this. It can be one level deep like I have here, or it can be multiple levels. This is a cell phone database. This particular item is an accessory. And that's useful on searches when I'm looking, if you recall, at the order level. If I select accessories from the pull down, it just shows me items that match that. In other words, that are tagged with this. But it's also useful for reports. Maybe you want to see how many accessories you sold on Amazon for a given month, for example. We also talked earlier about subproducts. Those will show up here with a master code. So if this were a t-shirt, the master code would be t-shirt, and then the options would be things like short sleeve, small, medium, V-neck, crew neck, etc. Again, you can look at that subproducts utility in the settings if you want. And if you remember, it's the subproducts tab on the order search. So you just do pull downs. What this does is create pull downs, but each product exists as a unique product with its own UPC code, its own quantities and prices, etc. So you can still manage them as individual products, but sell them as just pull down products to make it easier for your consumers. This is where that unlimited length field is. So again, you could pre-build this if you want, and then edit it at order entry, or if you left it blank, they could type it at order entry, and it shows up under the item on the invoice, on the packing list, can go in an email, etc. This is where you would create those multiple fields we saw. So I have one preset here. You can create up to 20. You can make your own fields, like I typed one called note with a 20 character length. So very powerful for creating discrete fields. For name and address, we can pull right from fields that we have in the database. For a note or something like that, the operator would key it. And it can be also a checkbox. So it could be text like a note is, or a checkbox if you need to flip a yes or no flag on. There are 4 price levels per product. So if you remember, John's a wholesale customer, he'd automatically get charged $2 for this product. Each one of these can have a quantity discount as well. So, from 5 to 10 on this one gets a different price than the $3.99, maybe $3.50. Etc. And quantity discounts can be shared across products that have the same mix and match code. So any other product that has the same code, if they bought 2 of these and 3 of something else, would still get the 5-point break. If you remember the add source keys, the by source key allows you to assign add source keys to specific products. That means instead of applying a discount across the entire order, it would just apply discounts to the products that are added to the order that are on sale or that are able to receive that discount. The price floor would be the lowest price that you would allow your operators to sell an item at if they're allowed to discount at all. So they can't sell below that. You can also at the order level pull down and see the margins. So for your folks that are doing a lot of dickering with customers, they can pull down and see the margin on each item based on what the actual cost of that item was, so that you can make sure you're not cutting too close to the bone. You can make any product tax exempt. It won't be charged tax. You can input a map, which is just there for reference purposes. We don't do anything with it. But it's useful if you're using map with carts where you have to add items to the cart in order to see the price, so you need to know what the map is. We store the weight in decimals. There's a little calculator to help you get used to converting pounds and ounces, super easy. And we'll push over the weight to your shipping software. If you know your weight, great. We can just print labels right from Channergy. If you don't know your weight, there's multiple ways to handle that. One way is to take the order all the way up to the point where it's packed and then go to your shipping software, key or scan in the Channergy order number, and it'll be pre-populated with the shipping method, the estimated weight, etc. Weigh it, print it out, the label, and you're done. It'll push back to us again, the tracking number, etc. Another way is in Channergy. When we go into fulfillment, we'll show you how this works. You can weigh packages, print labels right there. They could be separate labels or peel-off labels on an invoice or a packing list, so you don't have to go out to any shipping software at all. And then finally, we can help you learn weights. So especially for single items that go in their own box, we know what the weights are because we've been shipping them, so we can update this for you. And the goal is to automate as much as possible so you don't have to weigh boxes unless you have to. If you have any extra charges that you want to push to your shipping software, maybe it's a heavy or a large item, we can do that. We can track the cost of shipping that item, which is useful for reporting and that sort of thing. Remember, we're getting the total cost at the order level for comparing to your shipping, but this is product level for that purpose. We can calculate and add insurance when you key an order. We can push over hazmat codes. If you have any items like that, we'll push that to your shipping software. We can indicate an item ships in its own box. And if it does, the shipping software will know to pack it separately. We can also put in dimensional weight here. And if we have your factors, we can calculate dimensional weight for you. So if you remember order entry when we're picking the best ship method, that's one of the things we'll consider and tell you which method to use or automatically change the method to that. Stock levels is where you keep track of quantities. If an item, you can mark it as non-inventory. If it's an item you don't worry about, maybe it's something you have thousands of, or maybe it's not a real item like a discount or a message. Marking it non-inventory just means you have an endless supply. You can discontinue an item. If you do that, you usually want to say do not allow back orders, so when this gets down to 0, you won't keep trying to sell it. However, we do substitutions as well. So if this is out of stock or gone forever, you can substitute it with something else in your inventory. If that's not available, something else, up to 3. You can either prompt the operator or not when they're keying an order. It's useful to prompt them if it's a similar item and they need to recommend it to the customer, and to not prompt them if it's just an internal order, a product number change they don't need to know about. In addition to being useful during order entry, this is also useful for products that folks order on the web, on your various channels. If an order comes in and an item's out of stock, and it showed on the web it was available, but it turns out to be out of stock, we can automatically generate an email to the customer that says, hey, you ordered this particular product, it's out of stock, we'll have it back in stock on this date. Or you can have this one now. Which would you prefer? So it's a proactive way to let customers know immediately what their options are so they're not upset that something's back ordered. Okay, let's take those off, and then we'll talk about quantities. You can have a quantity in stock, like 5, or you can use our multiple locations feature, which most folks do. And for that, within locations, you can have as many different locations as you like. Physical locations like warehouses and bin numbers. You set these up again in the setup button. So maybe warehouse 3 bin 10 has 15 in stock, and you want to pull from that first. Another location could be a drop shipper like we have here. In this case, we're just going to assume they have an endless supply, so they're marked non-inventory, but you can uncheck that. And you can either put in a number here, maybe fudge a number, or we can read in feeds. Maybe they give you a daily or an hourly feed. And we can take that number and dumb it down too if you like. So if a vendor's, is a vendor for multiple people and they have 50, maybe you just want to show 10. And then mark it drop ship. And if you remember order entry, those will get marked with a D, so we know they're drop ship, and we can create drop ship POs. You can either do it manually or it can be automated. So again, you can have as many in here as you like. They can have it'll automatically pick up the lot numbers and expiration dates that we take at receive inventory, which I'll show you later. But we'll know what lot number it's sold under and what the expiration date is. Whenever you're finished here, whatever your total is of these will roll up into the total available in stock. And that's going to be the default number we use for your listings, etc. But we'll cover that when we get to those in a little bit. Extra fields are just that. There's a bin number if you don't want to use the number in the multiple locations field. Either one or both of those can show up on pick list, packing list, etc., so your folks know where to pick from. There's 5 custom fields. You can rename these in preferences to whatever you like, so they make sense for your type of business. The first 4 are not searchable, but they do show up during a product search at order entry. So it can show specific information to your reps so they can answer questions, etc., without having to open up a separate screen. If you sell books, we have ISBNs. You can store up to 3 UPC codes for a product. ChannergySE supports barcoding all throughout the system. You can, if you see a UPC code, or if you make your own product number barcodes, which you can do from receive inventory, so you can make labels, or if the product supplier puts a barcode on there, it doesn't matter which one you scan, we're always going to resolve it back to the ChannergySE product number. So you typically use that like if you're taking orders from folks that walk in, if you have retail or over the counter, when you're receiving merchandise from vendors, when you're packing items into boxes at fulfillments, etc. That's the most common places. These are redundant. We have them on the supplier screen. If you sell out of the country, we do things like duty percent, preferred currency, etc. You can make items commission or royalty items, and we can calculate and add that for you. If remember, you can have commissionable folks specified at the customer and the order level. You can have a preferred ship method for a product too, so maybe this always goes UPS ground. Again, at order, if you remember, we can calculate shipping methods. This would be one of the things that we'd look at. That product got added to the order, defaulted it to UPS ground. That's probably the way you want it to go, but we could still override it if you want, or that could be the override. It's up to you. And there's other things you can do. Units of measure would be how this is typically sold, case, each, etc. Back order messages would be what customers see when this is out of stock. If you're pushing up images to particular channels, then sometimes they want a URL. This is where that would be stored. And I won't save my changes. If you sell automobile parts, etc., you need to track VIN numbers, we can do that, and retrieve and track titles and give it to customers. You can serialize inventory. Just mark it as a serialized item. And then when you sell the item, you can collect the serial number as you pack it, or you can pull it from a cage if it's a pre-built group that we did that you do at receive inventory. So everybody's a little bit different. We'll try to touch on that a little bit later. But the most common way is simply when you fill it to scan or key in the serial number. At that point, you know what went out to the customer, and if they send it back for return or exchange, you can verify it's the same one you sent out. You can make any product a gift certificate. And you can build a prefix, a suffix, and a random code length and type. And what that means is when you sell that product, maybe you call it gift certificate, for whatever value, it will automatically create the code. ChannergySE will keep track of that code when it's been redeemed in part or in full. With certain channels, too, we can coordinate promo codes so that we know that they used it on the channel and could deduct it from the gift certificate that you have stored in ChannergySE. You can also make any item a subscription item. And that means that maybe they buy it, pay for it once a year, and they get a weekly subscription or a monthly, etc. It's a little bit different than a recurring order, which we can also create, which would be an order that comes out, say, every month. Maybe it's the same as last time, a consumable, or maybe it's a book of the month or a cigar of the month. Whereas a subscription is something you renew every year or every period. Subscriptions can also do things like have emails that remind them, hey, it's time to renew. Hey, you missed the renewal. Here's one more. Okay, you're canceled, etc. So we help you set that up when we implement the program for you. Now, you can make any item a pre-order item. So if you want to, maybe you sell DVDs before they come out, for example. And then this is that company override. We saw order entry, so maybe this comes out of core. So when you add this item to the order, automatically changes it to the core company. That's one of the ways to make that happen. You can specify when it's time to reorder. Maybe when I get down to 50, I want to order 150 more. What price I want to pay for it. We'll talk about that when we create a PO in a little bit. We'll let you know how many on order and back order you have and what dates to expect them as well. Your operators can see this during order entry. Emails can see it, like the substitution email. PO creations based on that. We know we've got 11 coming, so that would be included in the count that you have in stock. So you really have 31 plus this 10, 41, either in stock or on its way. We're still below the 50, so it's time to order more, but that's part of the calculation. ChannergySE will store either a standard cost, which is for cost of goods sold, cost of goods in stock, etc. So it's just a flat rate that you assign, and or an average cost. And that's a weighted average that we determine as you receive inventory. So if you get 100 at $1, your average is $1. If you get another 100 at $2, your average is $1.50. And then, of course, as you sell off the $1 ones, it creeps back up towards the $2 mark. ChannergySE also works with accounting packages, the most common one being QuickBooks, but we do others. The QuickBooks export includes sales, so we'll push out the items sold, the amount they sold for, what quantities, what invoice number it went out on, the sales tax, and the shipping. We'll also create an accounts payable, what we push out. So we'll push the vendor out, the amount that you owe them. We'll create the vendor if they're not already in QuickBooks. And that way your accountant or bookkeeper has everything they need to cut checks, run reports, etc. But all that plus a lot more information is in ChannergySE. So you can run very detailed reports in here, like how much you sold on a given channel or of a different product, etc. If you sell kits, products made up of other products, we call those assemblies. So if this is a kit item with a price, it can be made up of items in your inventory that are built on the fly. So in other words, maybe we take one of these, and it's also made up of, say, maybe 2 of these, etc. And for each one, you can either use the current price and add it to it. So whatever the price is of this, it will add up to, on top of that $3.99. Or you can put a flat price, or you can just zero it out and it won't add to it. You can do that for each of the 4 price levels that we have. You can put a discount on it. As you're building it, we'll tell you how much it costs you to make it, and then you can figure out what you want to charge for it on the total charge for the kit. And then check this box to make this kit. If you don't check this, when this gets added to an order, these just get added as separate items, which is a nice feature. Maybe you want to do that for free gifts or accessories that you automatically add, or maybe it's for box and packing materials. You can have it added that way. And those, by the way, can be hidden on the invoice or the packing list, but it's useful for pick lists and for other reports. But when you check this box, what happens is when you add this product to the order, these show indented underneath it so you know that they're kit items. And they can be changed. You can delete them, you can change them. And then you can also hide them or show them on the screen and on reports. So you would typically show them on, say, a pick list or a work order, but hide them on the packing list or the invoice going to the customer or the email. This is for a kit built on the fly. So it would be the total available of this would be determined on the least number of these. So if you have 1 of these and 200 of these, you still only have 1 to sell, because once you sell that 1, it's 0. You can sell the kit beyond that if you want to. It'll just back order those individual items. For kits that you build and have on the shelf, you wouldn't use assemblies. You would just create those as separate products. These are for on the fly, so you could do either one or both. We saw suppliers already, attachments. We saw at order entry, but just to visit it again, you can have images, and they'll show up right up in the interface. So I'll just add this for fun. And you can have anything else you want, Word docs, PDF docs, web pages, etc., and those will all open up in their native program. And for those of you who sell automobiles, you can indicate, or automobile parts. You can indicate year, make, model, etc. And you can also identify that at the customer level like we saw. So that's how a product exists in ChannergySE.